we ready?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Should we say a prayer? Hold hands, take a breath.
Stop, because I'm into that.
You can do it.
No, I did a lot of that this morning. I'm good.
we're here to
I'm
make
good.
you-
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's great.
Jess,
Yes.
welcome to the Viall Files. Welcome back
Welcome back.
to the Viall Files. We are so grateful to have you.
Thank you for having me. I think I'm happy to be here.
You think?
Yeah.
We missed you. We are happy to have you back.
I feel like it's going to be cleansing.
I hope so.
I hope so too. What are you most nervous about?
I think just revisiting everything and talking about it out loud.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've had some time to reflect and I feel at peace, but I've not outwardly said much about it.
Yeah.
So,
We've noticed you were quiet
yeah.
online.
Mm-hmm.
Your what is it? Your silence was deafening. What did they say?
Was it? I almost felt like no one cared, which was
Not true.
better for me. I needed to protect my
We
peace.
saw differently online. We're glad that you disconnected if
Yeah.
that's what happened.
Mhm.
I did.
Yeah.
I had to disconnect for a little bit. I was off TikTok for a couple weeks completely. I actually deactivated my account altogether.
We do that often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I'm pretty good at
I've
just
done that
not
too.
opening up now.
I just delete the app
I just
because I'm like, I don't need the app. I don't need
Yeah.
to scroll. But you deactivated the entire account.
I did.
She's
I
done.
did. And then I was like, this is partially like my livelihood now and how I provide for myself in autumn. So I was like, hang on, let me just reactivate it and then delete the app.
There you go.
So
There
I
you
did
go.
that. And I
What do they say? Post and ghost?
Post and goes.
I've not been able to
Good
master
luck.
that yet. I want to post and hang out. Like I want to
post and like
Am
see what's
I
going
the
on.
toxic one?
I want to read the room. 'Cause
Oh.
yeah,
No, the
So-
room never matters.
I'm learning. I'm still new here.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
are.
Like I truly do not like. No one said I was going to be good at this. Like I don't go here.
Well, I know we have a lot to get into, and I know a lot of people are very anxious for us to dive into Perfect Match with you and then the aftermath of all that stuff. But before we get there, I think I speak hopefully for everyone, your fans, my audience, Netflix Nation. I don't know, is it Netflix Nation these days?
Bachelor
kinda
Nation's
cute.
going to be
That-
mad you said that.
Yeah.
They'll live.
Netflix verse.
Or they
Ooh,
won't.
Netflix verse.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than you coming on the Viall Files for the first time for kind of a brief howdy do before you hopped on a flight,
It was very brief.
you haven't really been out there chatting. I feel like a lot of people aren't that familiar with you and like your past and who you were and what you've been all through. And so
Mhm.
if you're down to kind of start there, and then we'll jump into the drama.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, I'm so grateful to like have the fan base that I have and had so many people, love and support me and reach out and say that like parts of my story that they've heard really resonated with them. And I'm like, that's amazing. But I feel like, I mean, collectively between the two shows, I've maybe had like 10 minutes total of screen time. Like I really wasn't there long. So I'm like, I'm so grateful for the love and support, but I do want, now that I have this huge platform, I feel like I can do something with it. And doing that, I feel like I should share more about myself and where I come from.
Well, what's sort of beginning? Where were you born? I'm just kidding.
Where were you born?
But yes, what was your life like pre-fame, pre-Love is Blind?
So
Things like that.
pre-Love is Blind, I was single for a couple years. I don't know if I shared that last time. Honestly, I'd come off the tail end of a lot of bad relationships. I don't think I had ever experienced a relationship in adulthood that wasn't painful, where I didn't experience betrayal, where I didn't experience, the foundation of our relationship being completely broken by things that are just not acceptable in a relationship. So I was single for a little over 2 years before I went on Love is Blind. I went through the whole process of like, okay, like the common denominator here has to be me.
Okay.
I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in these relationships, but I keep picking the same kind of person.
What was that person? Who do they look like? I mean, not physically. I mean,
physically, we've all learned like that's clear as
Hot.
day.
Hot.
Well, I don't know, depending on how you ask, because you can be physically very attractive and be so hideous on the inside.
sure, but I guess
That's true.
to the point, like,
Yes.
who was a type of person that
Like
you were?
the fixer upper, like the one that's like,
Mm.
I can change them. They would change for me. And like I've crossed paths and I've had really good options and I've had really good men be interested in me, but I always go for the ones that honestly, I think I trauma bond with them. Or I mean, maybe I'm trauma bonding and they're just like floating in the ether. But I realized I was like, I need to take some time to heal and figure out what I want, figure out what's good for me, because I don't want to go through this anymore. You know, I was in therapy. People throw therapy around like so loosely. I've been in therapy my whole life. In childhood, like I grew up in foster care, being in
You
therapy.
grew up in foster care.
I did. Yeah.
Let's rewind.
I didn't know if you wanted to start that early.
Well, I think that's a very unique experience. I also like, I don't think a lot of people talk about. People talk about adoption,
Mhm.
things like that. Foster care, I feel like for the most part, it's something you see like in movies, you know, where it's just like the origin tales of like some orphan who becomes a hero.
Right.
But like, what is foster care? I mean, you know, we know what foster
Yeah.
care is, but I think there's a lot of unknowns about that experience. What was that like for you? Were you bouncing between houses? Do you remember that?
I mean, I went into foster care for the first time when I was 4, and between the ages of 4 and 16 when I finally got adopted by my last foster family.
So wait, so from 4 to 16, you were in the system, so to speak.
Yeah. So I probably was in 15 or so homes over the
my
years.
God.
Oh my.
In between doing that and my biological mom, my parents were both addicts.
Okay.
They both suffered from severe drug addiction. So I would go into foster care and then my mom would get clean and then I'd go back into her custody. And then that was like an ongoing cycle. So it would go in between me living with her and then living with different families.
Do you feel like that is did that hurt you in any sort of way to like be in the system and then go back to your mom and then, oh no, back in the system? Like, how was that for you to kind of
It
have hope
was
of like, I'm back with my mom? And then,
well, you know, children are so resilient. So like in my childhood, it was like a normal thing to me. I mean, I was always like hoping for the best, but I didn't realize. And that's another thing is like experiencing these shows and seeing myself on TV and seeing decisions that I made. It's like making my childhood come full circle because
Mhm.
children like compartmentalize because they're in survival mode, especially in situations like that. So
Yeah.
it was hurtful and it was always an ongoing cycle of like, I want to feel chosen. I want to feel like, you know, I'm worth someone keeping me around for a long time. So yeah, I was in and out of a lot of different homes. But I never thought I'd see the day where I could feel like I'm really grateful for that because it really equipped me for experiences like this.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's what I want people to realize. Like, I'm built very different. Like, it felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to me, like watching the show back and getting eaten alive by the internet. But, like, in the reality of it, like, I've been through so much worse. Like, it's really, I don't want to say it's neither here nor there, but, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, I mean, I've gone through worse than this before I was even like, you know, an
Yeah.
adult. So,
And you survived.
and I survived.
Yeah.
So
Were all of the foster homes, were they good people? Because I think a lot of them are not, unfortunately.
none of them were. The only one I really have good things to say about is my mom, my last
Okay.
the family that
Chose you.
Oh my God. 10 minutes
yeah,
in.
the family that chose me.
I'm sorry you went through all of that.
No, it's okay. Don't
No,
be sorry.
but-
I'm really grateful for it. You know, like I don't really know what to do with it yet, but I know all of that is I'm gonna be able to do something with it. But yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, the family that chose me. God, I didn't think I would be this emotional like this early on in the interview, but yeah. I think that was the first time when I was 16 that I felt like, okay, yeah, this is it. Like I feel chosen, which was crazy because at that point I was almost old enough to age out of the system.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was on my way to actually have to live with another family. And my mom was like,
And survive on your own.
yeah, my mom, I call her my mom, the family that adopted me. She was like, no, you're here forever. Like this is your last stop. So, but having said that, yeah, none of the homes I lived in were good. They weren't good people. Like I don't really know how they were qualified to even like take care of their own children. But like you said, I survived it and I'm here to tell the story
Mhm.
and hopefully do something with that and make a difference.
It's obvious that you've been in a lot of therapy, just kind of watching you and getting to know you a little bit. I can't help but wonder, I'm sure you've talked about this in therapy, but something now that I've learned in therapy is childhood traumas and how we can bring those
Right.
into our adulthood. Talking about your picker, your
Mine's broken, or it was.
yeah, I think that's a rite of passage for
Yes.
adulthood.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder, what's your relationship with your biological mother today?
God, Nick, you're hitting me with all the good questions. So I have to keep her at kind of arm's length. I have to keep her at a distance because throughout my childhood, even like in being taken away from her and being in different homes, a lot of times I'd run away and like go and find her to help take care of her. And in my adulthood, when I started working and like making money, I always tried to make sure that she was taken care of and had what she needed. And that is enabling. And I always joke and say like she was my firstborn child before I had Autumn.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I had Autumn, I realized like that's not something I could continue to do because I had Autumn to take care of. Like that takes precedence over everything. So I don't really have much of a relationship with my biological mom, but she is alive. I don't know if she's well, but I've not really figured out a good, healthy way to navigate that because I want to help her more than she wants to help herself. She's still in active addiction. So
Yeah, and that must be brutal to want to obviously help someone you love. And I guess the reason why I ask is I can't help but wonder if you're you're not the only person who has dated a fixer-upper. A lot of us have been there, but it does come from somewhere. And this desire to believe in your mom and want her to change and get healed and get better, I can't help but wonder if maybe that is what's drawing you to some of these men.
I know that that's why. I know that that's why. And I also hate the term like daddy issues, but I mean, my biological dad, he committed suicide when I was 7. So
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I know this all feels so heavy, but I promise you I've practiced so much acceptance with it.
No, we appreciate you sharing because it's
but that's also a thing because I'm like, okay, well, I never had a way to like feel chosen with him. He just quite literally was like, yeah, I'm going to leave the chat. I mean, that's really dark humor. But like with my mom, I always felt that desire of like, I want her to choose me. I want her to choose me over all of the other things that she wants. I want her to choose me over addiction. And then in therapy, I learned addiction is an actual disease. It's a chemical imbalance. It's not a matter of it's you or her drug of choice. They don't look at it that way. And I'm like, I'm her child. Like how could she not? Because I look at Autumn and I'm like, there's nothing more powerful than my love for her. Like nothing will ever come before her. So like that was a hard thing to accept with my mom. Is like she might not ever choose me. So I think it does spill over into my relationships in adulthood. And I think that's really hard for people to understand and maybe even empathize with if that's not something they've experienced. Because from the outside looking in, it just looks like, you're being weak or you're being a doormat or you're, accepting things that you drew a hard line in the sand that you wouldn't. And it's really not as black and white as that.
Yeah.
Because for me, I know we're not getting into the show yet, but everyone's, they were watching the show and it was like pure entertainment for them. And I'm watching myself and I'm like, all I can see is oh my God. All I can see is the little version of me that just, I would literally stand at the doorstep and just wait for change, wait to be chosen. And I felt like that's what I was just standing there floating in the ether doing. Like it was a much more serious and deep experience for me than I think people realize.
Yeah, it sounds like we talk a lot about relationships on this show, and I talk about hope a lot as in a way that can be a dangerous thing, and it almost sounds like I think usually we look at hope as a good thing. We want to be hopeful, but in your case, it almost sounds like hope has been like your worst enemy.
Yeah, but I don't want hope to be confused with desperation because it was never that. I've unfortunately seen and I've heard a lot of people talk about like, oh, she just so desperately wants a man. No, I don't. I've got more men beating down my door than I know what to do with. It's never that. It's subconsciously me wanting to feel the success story, me feeling like I want to be, I pick the worst of the worst, not saying that, anybody in particular is that, but I pick, I think, the most unlikely situation for me to have the success story with, because that to me would have felt like an accomplishment because I've never had it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people are going to say mean things online, but we all hope for the best for ourselves. We all want the love story, I think that's the challenge of getting older and doing therapy, is trying to strike that balance between, maturing and being practical, but still like, dreaming and still going for it and still taking risks. We've all been hurt in relationships for various reasons. You got to get back up and you got to keep going, and that is hope. Sometimes hope works against you though. So it's it's not desperation. Obviously, it's the desire to want better for yourself, which literally everyone has. And that's the tough part, is when we run into people who sense that hope and take advantage of it.
I think that, but I also think, and this might be the enabler in me, I do also know that people can only operate from like their perspective and like their experience. And I think that hurt people do hurt people.
Yeah.
I do know that. And sometimes they might be aware of it. And sometimes that's just literally all they know, which is why I think I do trauma bond with people. I've like briefly dated people who have seemingly like never faced adversity or had any childhood trauma. And I'm like, I love that so much for you, but we're on two completely different sides of the world here.
Yeah, I mean, like hearing you talk about your childhood and mine, like I had a very blessed childhood. That being said, we all have our experiences, right? Like whoever you are, I don't care, privilege doesn't care about like, heartbreak or, we all go through shit. I have a very blessed childhood. But I completely relate to that. I've had in my adult life dating struggles and relationships and yada yada yada. We all do. And so when I've met people in the past that were like, my first relationship and I've never been broken up with or yada yada, I would always steer clear of those people, because to me it was just more like, I can't connect with that. I can't relate to that. Like
Yes.
So it makes a lot of sense.
And I feel that. And maybe I was doing it the wrong way, because it would be the same thing if I had met someone and, we're talking and getting to know each other and they seemingly hadn't faced adversity or they hadn't had a serious relationship or had their heart broken. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to be like your guinea pig.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, and some of those things, you have to go through in life. There's a lesson to be learned in everything, truly. So I'm like, I don't know about that if you've not had any serious relationships. So when I'm dating someone and they've had this really tumultuous, crazy, if they've had a crazy past in dating, and I'm like, oh my God, me too. So you must be at the end of the road. You've experienced it all. You've been hurt too. There's no way we could hurt each other.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's the thing. Like it's not practical to, it's, oh, fine, I go for the fixer-uppers, it's just like, no one's going to be like, oh, well, then, like you said, it doesn't mean you should look for the people who are just like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, I have no trauma here. I'm good. Like, I'm healthy, healed, whatever. And then how do you distinguish between the people who say they've healed versus the people who show they've healed? And how do you tell the difference?
Well, people who, like me, who have said that they've done the work, and doing the work is not like, I've done it and I'm over it. Like it's
every single day.
It's an ongoing thing, in which that was a lesson I had to learn recently is, it's like, you've got to maintain. It's like, like your brain is a muscle. You have to maintain it like you do the rest of the muscles in your body. You can't just leave it and hope for the best. So when someone's like, I've been in therapy, I've done the work, like, and they're using words like past traumas and betrayal. And it's like, okay, well, they really get it.
Yeah.
I don't have to teach them that.
Yeah, because I think you people like that phrase, I've done the work. It's become like a lot of things these days, something people pick up on and then know how to use. I've learned it's like doing the work to me. It's just like, it's learning tools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like when someone says, "Oh, I've done the work," to me, I've learned through experiences in the hard way that a follow-up question is like, well, what tools have you learned? Because like to your point, it's an ongoing process, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the trauma doesn't go away. You just learn you learn the tools to better emotionally regulate when you feel triggered. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you do feel that sensation, instead of reacting negatively or using that trigger to overcompensate or whatever, you learn the tools to make healthier decisions in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that trauma, you will always have to apply those tools.
Right.
And so to your point, using the analogy, you always got to sharpen your tools. And if you don't sharpen your tools, eventually those tools don't work as well as they used to.
Right.
And, you know.
And one thing I had to also learn was to give myself a little bit of grace, because after doing the work so conscientiously for 2 years before going on Love is Blind, and then seemingly, I don't think I necessarily made any mistakes there. I mean, maybe I did. There was definitely some things to be learned. Watching that back, there were some things I wish I had picked up on more, but
Love is Blind?
yeah.
Like what? What do you mean?
Like same thing. One of the things that Jimmy and I connected most on, which it wasn't shown, was our traumas, like things we had went through in our childhoods, and like, you know, and that wasn't shown. I think on both shows it looks like I was just being given breadcrumbs and falling in love with like nothing, when in reality, like both people I had been interested in, I had beautiful experiences with and really deep connections. So but anyway, the things I wish I had picked up on was, you know, I think that also may have been like a fixer-upper situation, because I don't think that he was where I was with what we wanted out of a relationship, you know, but I wanted that success story. Like, he might not be ready for it, but he will be for me, you know? But yeah, watching both back, I've had to give myself grace, because I had done the work. And after watching Perfect Match, I was like, how did I make such catastrophic, like very blatant mistakes? And I'm like, you know what? This is a lesson for me and a lot of people, because you could have been in therapy for years, and you might get back out there and start dating again and make the same mistakes that you had made prior to going to therapy and doing the reflecting and realizing that you might have a hand in the bad relationships that you're in.
Yeah.
You know, I beat myself up really bad, like way worse than the internet did, if you can believe that, because I was just like, how dare me betray myself? But there was still a lesson to be learned there, because, you know, just because you've gone to therapy, like you said, it doesn't mean that you're healed. It doesn't mean you're not going to make the same mistakes and still possibly pick the wrong people.
Well, also, I mean, like, people talk about vulnerability all the time, another buzzword people like to throw out. But like being vulnerable is to kind of give yourself to someone, to trust, to embrace.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be vulnerable, especially in love and in relationships, is to give that person you're in a relationship with the opportunity to hurt you. That's
Right.
vulnerability.
And truly, and I think every single person who has participated in Love is Blind would agree with this. After dating in the pods and doing that, you have no choice but to lead with vulnerability, because there's no distractions without even meaning to. There's no other way to date. You don't date any other way, but except just being like, okay, this is everything about me. This is everything I want out of a relationship in life. Do you want to get married? Like, it's like Love is Blind. That is one of the best things I think we all take away from it, is the vulnerability piece that you learn. You learn so much about yourself, and you learn that's truly the only way, if you want a successful relationship, is to give absolutely all of yourself and really not care about the risk of being hurt, but take the risk of being hurt with the potential reward of having someone fully know you and love you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking for something full of passion and that has the human touch, then look no further than Etsy. On Etsy, you can find something handmade, handpicked, or designed by independent sellers who pull from their unique experiences and bring their whole hearts to their small shops. We decorated River's entire nursery with Etsy. I am currently using a baby book on Etsy that I put all these Polaroid pictures in every day. It has all these prompts of like, you know, what are things that have been challenging this month with River? How much does she weigh? What are things that I love? What is a highlight? What are things that she likes and dislikes? I found it on Etsy. I have found some of my most prized possessions on Etsy.
The fingerprints Etsy sellers leave behind reveal who they are. Human beings determined to make human connections. That's why you've got to go to Etsy when buying a gift or even something for yourself. You know there's a person behind the items you're choosing. There is someone who loves their craft and puts their own touch on what they offer. One of my favorite things that I'm getting, like when we got the lake house, we noticed that some of our neighbors had like this really cool like picture frame, and it had like the depth of the lake, and it was amazing. And like knowing that someone handcrafted that it feels like one of those kind of like priceless gifts. So next time you're shopping for yourself or someone special, choose extraordinary items, handmade, handpicked, or designed by a small business. Keep commerce human. Discover small businesses on Etsy. So, perfect match.
Yeah.
What mindset did you go in with?
Believe it or not, I did not go in there thinking I was going to meet anyone that I would be interested in. And everyone's like, maybe she didn't watch the first season. I did. I knew the premise of the show. I knew it was silly. I knew it wasn't serious. I knew people didn't go on there to get married like they did Love is Blind. For me, I was just kind of like, you know what? I know who I am. I know I'm not going to do anything salacious like the show is kind of known for. I'm just going to go and maybe just have the spring break I never had. The reality of it was I just wanted to go and maybe make some friends and have a good time and go home.
Also, the stakes, you went from getting married to going on a vacation.
Right. I was
So-
like, that's fine if that doesn't happen. And I didn't think it would because it's not Love is Blind. Meeting someone on there and actually developing like real feelings, especially with who it was, I did not see that coming.
After you got there, like when did Harry kind of pop in, and like when did it become the Harry and Jess show?
I definitely wouldn't call it that because, for most of the show, he and I really weren't shown much. There wasn't much to show because we were just kind of doing our own thing. Our relationship was really seemingly healthy and kind of lackluster compared to the other couples because we weren't doing anything crazy.
So I guess, like, how did it start? Like, when Harry came in, and like, how did he present himself? Did he give you a line? Like, who made the first move? Like, did you know who he was? Did you know anything about him?
I'm definitely shooting myself in the foot here, but yes, absolutely. I knew who he was.
Okay.
It would be better for me to lie and say, no, my God, I had no idea. No, I knew who he was.
You weren't living under a rock.
Yeah, I knew who he was. I was aware of his past, but when we met, our first date was like 3 hours long, and I think only like 4 minutes were shown. So we were out there talking for a really long time, like getting to know each other, and it got deep really, really quickly. And when he introduced himself, he was like, I'm Harry. I'm from the first season of Too Hot to Handle. And he was like, which name were you from? I told him I was from Love is Blind, but my season hadn't been out yet. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen the show that you were on. I don't think I know. I played it like I didn't know him. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, obviously I know who you are. And he's like, oh, well, don't watch it. You don't need to. And I'm like, I definitely watched it. But he was nothing. He was nothing like he was on TV. Like he was,
How so?
Well, obviously he was charming, like that part remained, but he was very insightful and he was really smart and he was very, very mature. I know everyone's looking at me being like,
No.
What did he, how did you see maturity in him?
He just, the way he didn't talk at all about anything silly. Like he talked about where he was at in his life and how he wanted a wife and children. I think they did show that part, how he was like, I'm ready to settle down. And we actually talked a little bit about his childhood and where he came from on that date, but that wasn't shown. And we just sat there for a really long time, like getting to know each other. And it was really easy. It didn't feel like I was talking to the Harry that like everybody knows. And it remained that way. Like throughout us dating on the show, he was very attentive, very selfless. Like, and every single day, everything that he did before he did something for himself, he was either cooking for me or packing my bag before one of the challenges, checking in with me, making sure there was food in the house I could eat because, I have Crohn's. Like, so it was like, I mean, it's always slim pickings for me, but it was like extra slim pickings out in like Mexico in the jungle.
So you kind of felt taken care of a little bit.
I did.
He surprised you.
I told him all the time, I was like, you were the most pleasant surprise. Like, I kind of kept waiting for like the rug to get pulled out from underneath me for a little bit. I mean, obviously it ultimately did, but our relationship was actually very mature. I said it in another interview and absolutely got demolished for it. I think it was an interview I did with E! News. I said it was actually really beautiful, and everyone was like, oh my God, this girl's insane. But they didn't show that because that didn't make for good TV, how well he actually did treat me and how mature he actually really was.
Yeah. So, and you're saying it was beautiful in the beginning because early on he was demonstrating behaviors that you thought was who he was.
Mm-hmm. And, I've noticed in dating, a lot of people will show fake interest in my daughter just because they know that really interests me. And that's really easy to get me to talk about. And it's really seemingly easy to butter me up that way. But he really did seem to take a genuine interest in getting to know about her and what she was like and what we were like and what our dynamic was like and what my day-to-day was like and taking her to school and packing her lunch in the morning. Like, it wasn't like me trying to volunteer that information to him. He really wanted to know like what my life was like with her. And every time we would talk, I would kind of feel like he would be like turned off by it. But he was always like, that's really interesting. Like, that really like makes me love you more.
How did that compare to other men you've dated in the past? Obviously, having Autumn, I'm sure you've experienced dating with a daughter, and I'm sure you've had various experiences with men and how they feel about that. I guess, like, how did that compare, and did that play a role?
Well, since I've had Autumn, I mean, she's 11 now, but I haven't done a ton of dating. I mean, it was mentioned a little bit on the show that I was engaged after I had her. And there was a joke on there that I was engaged just because he was rich, which he was wealthy, but that's not why we were together. I mean, that was a silly thing to throw in on TV, but he and I were together for 6 years and he was a great man and he loved her and he accepted her. He and I had our differences and things we couldn't work through. So that's ultimately why we ended up not being together. But after him, I only dated one other person for a couple years. I dated the next guy for 2 years and he actually never met Autumn.
Oh, wow.
That's something I take really seriously that I think, I mean, I wish I had more time and opportunity to talk about, but he wasn't a great guy at all. Like, that was a situation where I wanted him for me, but I knew he wasn't good for her. So that was a thing. He and I were on and off for 2 years and I kept my relationship with him completely separate from her because, again, I kept wanting to feel that change within him. I could see the potential. I wanted him to be a good man and be a good example for her, but he never got to that place. So I never let him meet her. And then after that, like, I'd been on random dates here and there, but I never brought Autumn around any of the men that I dated other than the one I was engaged to. So, and going on like dates here and there were some guys that were just like, yeah, no, I'm not really cool with this. That's not really a dynamic I could see myself fitting into. And some guys were like, yeah, I love that. I want to be part of it. And sometimes it would be genuine and sometimes it wasn't. It was like just through trial and error that you just learned who was really interested and who wasn't. And you could usually tell in like the questions they asked and like their reaction to things where, like, when I would talk with Harry, like, he would genuinely be excited about being part of like the family dynamic and seeing like where he could fit in. And
was that new for you? That feeling of dating a guy that you were excited about, being excited about your daughter?
Not really new, but I think it was really exciting to feel with him because that's one of the things that I never would have expected from him. I was like, well, this isn't something he's ever done with anyone before, but he wants to do it with me, like, he lives this crazy life and he's talking about like changing everything around just so he can fit into how we live, which is completely different.
How did, like, looking back, thinking about those conversations, how does that make you feel now?
I kind of wish we hadn't.
Why?
I think that would have, like, if I hadn't invested so much so soon, I think it would have made it harder to like let go a lot sooner because things were really, really good until they weren't. But at the first sign of when they weren't is when I should have been like, yeah, no, this isn't worth the risk anymore.
You mentioned he's smart. Do you feel like he's smart enough to know what to say? Like, do you feel, when you look back at it now, do you feel like all the things he said about your daughter that really touched you and made you excited, made you feel that surprised, do you still think that came from a genuine place?
I hope so. I don't want to, for like my own personal sanity, I don't want to say that it didn't come from a good place. I'd like to think that I have a better read on someone than to think that I could be manipulated into thinking something like that was real when it wasn't. I do think watching it back and seeing it, from the outside looking in, I could see the struggle between, I think that he really did mean and want the things that he said to me, but he also is this completely other person that and has this whole image that he has and wants to live up to. So
Which is what?
I want to think that both were true.
Like fuckboy personality.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask him. Like, do you think that like the Harry that you experienced was actually genuinely him and this whole like fuckboy persona is the act or the other way around?
I don't think that they're two mutually exclusive things. I think that he could be both. He has a way of being able to adapt and be whatever he needs and maybe wants to be in the moment. Like, I can see him and I could see the emotion and I can see how he was talking about me in his interviews. And to this day, I can't look at it and think there's no way he didn't mean any of it. Like, I don't want to accept that. Like, I accept all of the horrible things too. I'm not in denial about them, but I don't want to believe that there was absolutely zero. Like, I don't want to believe he wasn't genuine at all.
Why? I mean, what if it were true?
I'll never know. I don't feel like it will do me any good to say, oh my God, he never cared about me at all. None of that was real. I think that both could have existed at the same time.
Yeah.
And maybe that's me being an enabler. I used to say the same thing about my mom, like, oh, she can do all these horrible things and neglect me, but I'm still her first priority. She still loves me more than anything. I think both maybe can, like, I don't know. And that's where I'm at right now, is trying to sort through all of that and figure out how to not make those kind of mistakes and maybe enable again. But knowing him and experiencing him off camera also, that was the other thing, is the whole like fuck boy, like silly, never taking anything serious. Like, naturally, he's a really funny guy, or I would have never been with him in the first place. But off camera, he was even more wonderful. It's like when the cameras were on, he was on. Mm-hmm. But when it was just us and there were no cameras, like, I think those are the things that I held on to that made it hard to walk away from.
When did things take a turn?
On Perfect Match, I think that, and I don't know, like, I was so far removed. Like, I truly was just there. I felt like in the background. There were so many times I felt like I was out of place. I felt like I don't want to be here. I felt like I was having imposter syndrome. Like, and I would tell him that there were so many more times than not at the end of the day, at the end of filming, that I was like, I want to leave. I don't want to be here. I don't feel like I should be here. Like, I feel so out of place. And he would just be like, you probably are. Like, after getting to know me, he's like, wow, you're really not a clout chaser. You're really not an influencer. You really only have, I think I had less than 1,000 followers at the time. He's like, you're really just a regular human. Like, this probably is a lot for you, but just focus on me, stay fixated on me and what we have, and don't pay attention to any of these other things going on around us. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. I like it there. It's safe there. Like, he did feel like my safe space in there and all that chaos, believe it or not. I think it took a turn.
I believe it. Yeah, for sure. It's a very alone atmosphere, those shows.
It truly is. Yeah. Even though there's so much going on around you, like, it's treacherous.
Those atmospheres are designed to strip away your support system. They take your phone, cut off you from your family, et cetera, et cetera. It's a social experiment, and they throw you into a social experiment. Right, and your only friends are people you don't know and producers. That's not exactly an atmosphere of trust.
True, it's not. So I did really cling on to him harder than I should have, maybe. But I was still talking to Autumn every day and checking in with her and telling her all the crazy things that were going on. In the mornings when people would have their phones and they were like taking content and like doing all the influencer things, which I love and respect now that I'm in this space. But I would be on the phone with Autumn like, oh, these grown people, these adults, look what they're doing in the background. And she's like, all right, well, if there's successful people in that space, you should probably be taking notes and doing it too. And I'm like, no, lame. Like I could never. Now look at me. I didn't even have a TikTok at the time. That's what's so funny. They'd be making TikToks and she'd be like, you need to figure out, like, look what they're doing. Go hang out with them. But anyway, so I think it took a turn when like something switched where he and I were very, very serious. And then all of a sudden, not as serious. And then increasingly more not serious.
Do you feel like we saw that switch as the audience viewing the show?
Maybe so. It didn't seem as abrupt because they did show him being silly and unserious more often than not, just because I think that made for better TV. If it had been like Love is Blind, they would have been showing all of the beautiful moments. And he and I, like, we didn't win any challenges and go on private dates because I was not having it in the sun. Like, the manual labor and on the beach, I couldn't be bothered. I could not. And we'd go home at the end of the night and I'd be like, well, dang, I really wanted to go on a date with you and have some alone time. And he'd be like, it's fine. And he would set up little dates for us at the house. And like, someone brought out a sheet from Love is Blind, like one of like the question prompts that we have on the show, and like put it in our room. And I was like, oh, I'm about to teach you some things. And so we did that one night. But that wasn't shown. But yeah, I don't think it was as an abrupt thing for the audience watching the show, because I mean, from episode 1, they show him saying outlandish. I mean, and those things were true too. Him doing off the wall things and saying really out of pocket things.
But you didn't see that when
I didn't.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That was not my experience with him at all. I wasn't in the back corner with him while he was doing his interviews. I wasn't with him in the house before I got there. All I knew was my experience with him, which was very mature, which was very attentive, which I couldn't have asked for more in the guy that I met and the guy that sold the dream that he sold to me. That is all I knew. Yes, I knew about his past, but I have a past too. And we had a very transparent, and you saw part of that on the show when I was like, I'm the last person to play with. I'm the last person on the planet. I do not want to be in your graveyard of relationships. If you're saying you really want to do this with me, you're really doing it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can fault you for, knowing what you know about his past, but then seeing a completely different person in front of you and trusting his actions. I mean, that's what everyone always says is like actions speak louder than words. And it's like, well, his actions were showing you that he's changed and he's this good person and
they were.
Yeah.
I was just like, you know what? You're asking me for a fair chance, and I'm hearing what you're saying. You've got to be tired. Like, you have to be exhausted from all of that. Like, I hear that you want change and you want different. Like, what better time to do it than now? You want a fair chance, I'll give it to you. And you see, he and I have that conversation. So, I could have not taken the risk at all and been like, no, I know about your past like everyone else does. I don't want to do this. But I think even after seeing all of it played back, I think I would have regretted it. I don't think. And there were other good potential matches there that I could have gone for, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. No one was really going for me. I think once Harry like staked his claim on me, like no one really.
Yeah, that seemed pretty obvious with the cast.
Yeah, no one really went for me. At one point, I was like, do I stink? Like, why isn't any, which I don't, but like, I was like, why? No one would approach me at like the mixers. Like, I'd be like, what is going on? Is it because I'm older? I think the oldest female that was there, one of the oldest. I was like, I must because I'm old. Like, I don't understand. And I think one of the guys, it may have been, I don't want to name drop, but someone told me, they're like, no, it's because everyone knows that you're with Harry and we're not even going to bother. I'm like, all right, yeah, fair. Like, I probably wouldn't jump ship, but like,
try me.
Yeah, like, just try, see what happens.
At its best, in the perfect match atmosphere, what was the potential of you and Harry in your mind?
Of like working outside of the show?
Yeah, like before anything took a turn. When you were here talking in this very intense atmosphere that, anyone we've ever talked to, and I've experienced the same thing in Bachelor World, is that, yes, you can criticize us for falling in love and oh, it's only been a month and all this stuff. But obviously it's a very different kind of
that's the other
time lapse in that atmosphere.
Yeah.
But like at its best, what were you saying to yourself about what could be with Harry?
I definitely had reservations like the whole way through, but not because of not because of his actions. I really thought we had a good chance at making things work just because we had, I mean, every night, like we were talking about our future and like what life would be like outside of the show. It's not like it was like this big unknown thing. Like, you know, I live on the complete opposite side of the country, and like we talked about the logistics of that, and like it wouldn't be easy, but we wanted to try and make it work. It wasn't like where a lot of the couples were like, we didn't really talk about how are we going to make it work outside of the show. Like he and I were talking about it very early on. It was just kind of like, it seems silly, but it almost felt like a when you know kind of thing.
Well, also, I mean, like you said, I mean, as you get older, you have a daughter. You seem like a very intentional person. People talk about dating intentionally all the time. So it's not crazy to have strong feelings for someone, especially someone who doesn't live in the same area. And if you're going to have strong feelings, it makes sense to talk about serious things. You know, it doesn't mean you're going to get married. It just means you get out of the bubble, but I don't think it's as crazy as people want to make it sound.
Yeah. But I think looking back, like the bond and the really strong connection I felt like we had was not from like our experience on the show. It was not like from me being swept off my feet. You know, I mean, because him doing sweet things for me and being attentive, like that's the bare minimum. Like that's crazy to just be impressed by that, which some of us are, and that's fine. But truly, to me, watching it back and reflecting, it was a trauma bond, 100%. I mean, we touched on so many things. I learned so much about him that I don't think the rest of the world knows. That really, I mean, that alone made me see him in a different light than anybody else did. You know, I was like, a lot of what he went through as a child resonated with things that I had been through. And I'm like, we could talk so openly about those things. And if you can't tell, like I do my best, but those aren't really easy topics for me to like revisit. But he and I just did it so easily and openly.
And it makes you feel so safe too, to
Yeah.
open up to someone who understands, you know, when you have to kind of break down and explain and dissect like how it affected you and who you are today. It's like you feel just kind of like icky about the whole situation.
Yeah.
But to talk to someone who's like, no, I get it. Like I went through the same thing, or I went through something similar. It gives you the sense of safety and security that like,
it did.
How could they do this to me if they know how I felt from
Yeah.
this experience?
and if they went
Yeah.
through something similar, why would they want to do that to someone else?
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I was like, not me, I'm safe. You know.
Did he make any promises to you in the bubble that ended up not being true?
Yeah, that's not a secret. I mean, you saw he and I make the commitment to each other that we were gonna really give it a fair chance. That in the same conversation that I was like, you know, if we're doing this, we're really doing it. And he was like, I'm gonna give this my all. I'm not gonna hurt you.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I don't know. See, I jump to want to not make excuses, but I'm like, I don't know.
You want to see the good in people.
I do.
Is that more about protecting yourself or protecting him, do you think?
That I'm still trying to sift through. I think my pride almost doesn't want to let me think that it could be as bad as some people seeing it.
Well, we were really hard on him recapping the show. I think I referred to him as an emotional terrorist.
Oh, I was hard on him. That's the thing. That's a commitment he and I made to each other before the show came out, was if we had any issues with each other, or because again, when we dated, neither one of the shows that I was on had been out. So he had told me, you know, you're going to see things, you're going to see me, and you're going to see your friends and people in their interviews and saying things that you didn't see in real time. And it's going to make you feel a lot of things. He's like, but you and I should remain respectful. And if you have an issue with anything that you see, like reach out, like tell me directly.
When did he say this to you?
After the show, like after we were done with Perfect Match.
After your relationship was over?
Yeah.
Did that feel like who was he protecting there? Because that sounds like, hey man, we're gonna be cool. We're not gonna talk shit about each other. And
well, true, maybe so. But for me, I've made it very clear, like you will never have a social media war with me like you've had with anyone else. I won't do it. I won't entertain it.
Mm-hmm.
I will get on a flight and show up to your door before you catch me responding to comments, subbing you, trying to respond to any nonsense that you're spewing or anyone else. We're having a conversation. I don't want that kind of attention. If that's what clout means, I don't want any of it. Like we will have a direct conversation. I meant that very seriously. I mean, there were some things that he put out after the show that I didn't approve of, I wasn't happy with. But for the most part, he's had pretty nice things to say about me, as he should.
Yeah, like why wouldn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
What were some of those things that he put out there that you weren't happy with?
Like him posting photos of us when we were together and like
trying to give, I mean, I have quite honestly a lot of fans and friends and people I talked to thought you guys were together still.
Right.
The impression I got is there's something more there, and he's trying to give, like it seems like Harry's playbook throughout watching. Just, and I had him on the show. Seemed like a very charming guy in person.
He is extremely charming. Yeah.
Don't know him very well. When it's the thing when we talk about this, when we cover these shows, right? And I know what it's like to be criticized. I know what it's like to get heat, and I know what it's like to feel like people are talking about me in ways they don't really know me. And it can be tough, like when we're talking about this show, and we always try to say, hey, listen, we don't know these people. We acknowledge there's an edit. Sometimes we reserve the right to be wrong about people.
Right.
We try to watch these shows as like a launching pad to have conversations about real life interactions. So when we see certain types of behavior, we're more kind of criticizing the behavior, not so much the people per se, knowing that like maybe we're right about them, maybe we're wrong. Like I said, I referred to Harry as an emotional terrorist, and I said that because, people make mistakes all the time. I think there's fuckboys, and I think sometimes, even the guys sometimes can be unfairly judged for behaviors. I think it can be a two-way street. But I said that about him because it was one of those things as we watched on Perfect Match, right? There seemed to be this pattern that anytime you questioned him, all of a sudden overnight, he became the victim.
Yeah.
It was like you're apologizing to him for simply trying to have a conversation with him. It gave gaslighting.
That pissed me off. Yeah.
The stomach aches,
tears in bed.
the tears in bed, those things. And, like we were talking about before, hope, I've been screwed over in relationships. We've all been screwed over in relationship. I always kind of preach to my audience or to friends, like you got to keep opening yourself up. You can't be jaded, like don't let past relationships affect, future ones. You got to stay open no matter how many times it happens to you. Like you got to go there, so to speak. And the scary thing about the person he represented, again, because I don't know him as a person, but the person he represented on TV seemed like the scariest type of person. The person who, again, says all the right things, seems to be willing to say the right things, whether it's true or whether it's coming, who knows? But if you are someone who's been hurt, and you want to open yourself up and you want to trust again, it can be very scary because you'll never know if you're safe with someone like that, a person who can and is willing to say anything they need to either change the power dynamic or getting your good graces and make you very confused about your feelings, question yourself and your craziness or lack thereof. And that's scary because we want to believe in the best in people, and we want, to sit there and say, well, like you said, you don't want to date someone who hasn't been through it, who hasn't made mistakes, who hasn't had to say, you know what, I have had to hold myself accountable. I've had to apologize to people in the past. I know what that's like. You want to find those people. So I guess my question to you is, the Harry you've gotten to know, the good and the bad, was I being unfair calling him an emotional terrorist? Do you think people are putting themselves in a vulnerable position to pursue him, to date him?
I think at this point, after everything I've experienced with him, like before, during, and after the show, I do not feel like I know him at all. I don't know him enough. I've experienced so many different versions of him that I don't know which one is real. I can't say, and I don't know if it's for my own sanity that I want to feel like maybe some of what I experienced with him was real, or if it really was, or if it wasn't. I don't know. I don't feel like I wholeheartedly know who he is as a person or what his character is at this point in time at all. Because he's talked about it on his podcast. He and I did have conversations after the show, after we broke up after the show. And same thing. It was like, he was never farther than a call away and always seemed like he was there when I needed him or had a question. But then after the show, and I reached out to him, and after the final episode, and he was continuing to post things after I had told him I'd appreciate it if you didn't. I was just like, this is actually becoming hurtful and harmful to me. I'm getting absolutely annihilated on the internet. And I know you see it. It is not helpful that you are provoking it. And I would appreciate it if you took this down. And his response was, I hate that you're experiencing that. Unfortunately, I know how that feels to be getting beat up on the internet. And I just want you to know that I'm here if you ever need anything. And I said, all that's great, but did you see what I just said? I'm asking you because you've kept the door open for me. And you've said, if I need anything, to never hesitate to ask you. I'm pleading to you, please let up. Like, because I hadn't said anything about any of the things that he had posted, like the photos, the TikToks, whatever. It was the very last one he posted. I was like, that is actually, I'm hurt and I'm humiliated because I just had to see what actually really happened, which I didn't know. That's the other thing people don't realize. They didn't show us that footage at the finale. I watched it in real time with everybody else.
So he never admitted to you the truth.
He didn't. And for the record, I did believe Melinda. I did. I thought, like I said on the show, I think there was her side. I think that there was his side and somewhere in the middle. And what do we know? What did we find out? That was exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. She wasn't lying. And I never said she was lying. And people didn't pull that piece on the show where I said, listen, I'm not saying that you're lying. I'm just saying, I think there's your side, his side, and there's the truth. And he and I, we dated after the show and he had nothing but time, space, and opportunity to say, hey, this is actually what really happened. I'm telling you so that you don't have to see it when everyone else does. And he didn't give that to me. So anyway, and all of that to say, I want to think that he loved me as selflessly and beautifully as I felt like he did. But his actions to this day do say otherwise. Because even in our friendship that I thought we had, I think that it shouldn't have been a big deal for him to take that one post down. I didn't say anything about the rest of them. I said, this one hurts me and I want you to take it down.
It's still up.
And it is still up.
Do you feel like his want for, the reaction of the world, his audience, his followers, do you think that is more important to him than how you felt?
It has to be, even though the reaction that he got from it was not warm and welcoming. Like people felt the same way I did which was, why are you rubbing her nose in it? Like, this is human. You should both be embarrassed, And I think that he's brilliant. I do. I would always tell him, like, everything you touch turns to gold. Like he's one of the hardest working people I've ever met. He's wildly intelligent, I think, beyond what people realize. But I was like, I don't follow the logic of like any publicity is good publicity as long as people are talking about you, because he's a human. It affects him. Like, I'm not exposing him in any way, but I've seen it affect him before I was in any of this. When I would see him read things and feel things that he saw on the internet, it hurts him. So I'm watching these comments roll in on the video I asked, or the post I asked him to take down. And I'm like, I know him. I know that this does not feel good, but I wonder if the not feel good feeling, he's just become, desensitized to. And maybe that does mean more to him than maybe giving me some comfort and just taking it down. I don't know. So,
I mean, if he's so brilliant, he's got to have an awareness about how his actions affect people if he cares.
Well, you've got to think, I mean, he's made a name for this space in a way that's not really like good. Like, what kind of legacy is this? I think we might not agree with it. It's not something I would ever do. And people would not agree with a lot of things that I do. So I'm not being a hypocrite. But no matter which way you look at it, he's been very successful in the space. Maybe not in the most, respectable way, but I mean.
Yeah, it's tough. So when the season ended, and I think it's very important that you clarify that you didn't get to see that video.
Yeah.
Because they almost aired it as if he was acknowledging his mistake, and then they showed the footage, and it's like, oh, Harry's coming clean, and they're showing it to everyone, and like, I guess it almost sounded like maybe he's apologizing, but that's clearly not the case. I think a lot of your fans and supporters struggled watching that clip of you two in the car
Same. It was right there with the best of them.
And then obviously, it's just like, it's like, we believed in you type of thing, being a single mother and you talking so much about, how much that matters to you. And I think a lot of your fans did, quite honestly, struggle to see that, specifically you guys getting back together after everything that happened in the bubble. And because you're someone who talks about dating intentionally and not being kind of flippant with your relationships and being purposeful. What was the reason you decided to get back together with him? And can we talk about how that relationship played out?
There's so much to this. When you see me like break up with him on the show and say I don't want to match with him, I wholeheartedly meant that. I did not think there was going to be any going back from there. I didn't think we were going to get back together. I thought like at that point in time, I didn't know exactly what happened. I just knew that, my person, the man that I'm meant to be with, the man that I want to lead my life isn't going to put me in a position where I have to question something like that, because that in itself is already wrong. And then we were at the finale, and then he and I, there was like a lull between the finale, and then we all had to do like promo stuff for the show afterwards. So we were all still in Mexico. So he and I talked and continued to spend time together then. And it was like the first experience that we had without the cameras. And I hate it, but it was wonderful.
But what was said between the two of you that made you kind of
he told me,
dismiss everything that happened?
I never dismissed it. And that's the other thing is like, I tore him a new ass like more times than people and on the show, but they didn't show it either. People thought I was just really gentle parenting him. I would really lay into him. Not that ever made a difference, but it was never just like, oh, like a slap on the wrist. Like there were ongoing conversations about it, but we talked about it a lot. And he would be like, I know that I made the biggest mistake of my life. And the thing with him that was different than other relationships I had been in is he would admit his wrongs and say everything that I needed to hear. So I didn't have to say it. So when he's like, I know this was the biggest mistake of my life. I know I should have represented you better. I know I should have been a better man. I did this, and this is what I'm going to do differently. And this time I'm never going to put you in this position. You shouldn't be here in the first place. I know you're humiliated and it's because of me. Like I'm going to redeem myself. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Like these are the steps that I'm going to take to get you to trust me again. Like I made this mess and I'm gonna clean it up.
So he came full court press. It's not like you came out of the bubble and you guys hung out and he was just like, let's just like chill and like get to know each other slowly. He came correct. Like
all the way correct. And that is that was one thing. Our communication was really good. Like I didn't ever have to tell him or ask him like, okay, so what do you think you did wrong? Like he knew he knew what he did wrong. And he was like, these are the steps that I'm going to take to be better for me and for you. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm still mad. But I mean, I have learned, why am I going to continue to bash you or like beat a dead horse? If you know what you did wrong and you're telling me what you're going to do better, like I'm upset, but I'm not going to sit here and still like lay into you. That's what you do when someone seemingly doesn't know what they did wrong.
When did you guys first start talking after the show?
Like when did we get back? Like the clip that you saw on the show or where we were together?
Well, I mean, just like when did you first speak after you guys took off the mics and the cameras went away and this conversation of him coming correct, when did that start?
I think 2 days after. I mean, he had like reached out to me on Instagram and texted me, and we were both back at the hotel at that point off when we left the show. And I wasn't speaking to him. And then he actually got my room information from someone at the hotel, which I think is very illegal.
Illegal. Very much so.
But
which must have felt like a grand gesture in the moment.
It did. It really did. He like, I don't know if he paid them or did what, but I brought some books with me on the show and I left one of them in the house, and he had one of them in his suitcase. So he like found out which room I was in and like brought my book and left it outside my door with this really sweet note in it and sent me a really long, heartfelt text with everything I could have wanted in an apology note. And at that point, I was still like very firm in where I was. But then I was like, okay, maybe we can have a conversation in person. And then it was all kind of, like, we all know how that goes. And that's the other thing. okay, I get that it's him, but like how many times have you been like, okay, I'm done with this person? You know, unfortunately, there's not like a light switch on your heart, as like corny as that sounds. And it's like, okay, you read their apology note, and then it's like, okay, well, I want closure so we can have this conversation in person. And then you have the conversation in person, and the feelings are still there. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe it didn't work because of X, Y, and Z. And okay, we were on this too. Like,
And also, you didn't know the truth still. Like, you saw the footage a month ago, 2 months ago. Like,
right. I mean, I
recently.
had my doubts again
Yeah,
because that was
sure.
a bad position to be in.
But I think knowing the truth and seeing the truth is a lot different than
Oh my
what
God.
he told you, what you
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
happened.
That's changed everything. Because
Well,
like he and I, we had decided whatever, like we won't continue to be friends forever, but not enemies.
Mhm.
But after seeing the footage and what actually happened, that changed everything. Like we will probably never speak again.
But when he writes you this letter, he's visiting your hotel room, I got to assume, again, everything you've been through and everything you just shared with us, that your decision to get back into a relationship wasn't an easy decision and something you didn't take lightly. And I'm assuming you didn't get into that relationship like with the expectation between the two of you that would be some sort of like fling or situationship, or let's take things like slow. He doesn't strike me as someone who takes things slow with
No,
people.
but that was the plan. So when we like came back to the States and I went back home and he went back home, like we talked for a couple weeks and there were some doubts there. Like once, you know, you get reacclimated back into like regular society, then you're like, okay, now I know what's real. Like I've got my bearings. But he was like, you know, come out and visit me and like, let's actually like go on a date in real life and see how it is. And that was my first time I had ever come to LA.
So at this point, you're not technically back together.
No, and that's the thing is like, I think you can see in that clip that they showed at the end where he's like, yeah, we're getting married. And I'm like, no, we're just trying to figure things out right now. But I came out here. That was my first time visiting LA and it was perfect. Like it was like one of the best trips of my life ever. Well, not now because, you know, I'm on the other side of it, but I felt hopeful, like it was great. He was, you know, that attentive, really wonderful man that I thought I knew.
And did you become boyfriend and girlfriend? Did you say let's do this thing? Like what was how did you guys actually get into a relationship?
I mean, basically we were just like, okay, we see that this works.
And what was the expectation between the two of you? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, when Natalie and I first started dating, it was kind of like we had fucked around for 9 months and we weren't, I had my insecurities, yada, yada. But once we started dating, it was like, all right, we're going to go for it.
No, it was
and
like,
she moved out, and she came to LA and it was like, well, if we're going to do this, she lived across country and
I know. So we talked about logistics of everything and how we would make that work. Obviously I wasn't going to just like uproot my life and my daughter's life just to like come and, run off into the sunset with him. But like we had conversations about how we were going to make that work and how, we just picked up the conversation that we had on the show. There wasn't.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is like you went into that relationship that second time around.
Oh yeah, I was
serious
all in.
and with great expectations of what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw in, the end.
Which seems silly and I hate. It doesn't help my case that no one sees the seriousness of our relationship.
No, I think we all can say, like, we know this show's edited. We know we see. It's just like Instagram. People are showing the highlights of their life.
Yeah.
You're not seeing every second. You're not seeing the bad stuff. You're not seeing all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And again, you're clearly someone we're talking here. We've been talking for a bit. It's obvious, at least for me, that you're trying to really take accountability and you're trying not to point fingers.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that in your post.
Yes. Because the fact of the matter is, no matter which way you look at it, it is a, fool me once, shame on you. Shame on him for doing that. Fool me twice because I went back, completely shame on me. Like that was bad for him to keep selling me on something that possibly like may have not been real. But at the end of the day, like you saw me say on the show, like my intuition is telling me that this is not good for me. So I'm walking away. Ideally, that's what we all want to do, is be able to say I'm walking away and not go back. The reality of it is, I think for most people, that's not how it goes. And, everyone has a threshold that they eventually reach. Unfortunately, mine just wasn't then. I don't know why. I had to give it a shot outside of the show to see if, okay, maybe the contributing factors of being on TV and being around all these other people and the cameras and all this, maybe that contributed to why we didn't work out.
It makes a lot of sense in the sense that, like, here you are, you went into this experience very green, not knowing anything about reality TV. I think most people don't appreciate the fact that after you get out of Perfect Match, you've filmed 2 shows. None of those shows had aired at the moment. You're not a celebrity. Here you are dating a celebrity, a very big celebrity, someone who has a lot of experience. It's not that hard to believe that after you got out of this bubble, you showed up at your hotel room, said this, said that. Also, by the way, like, listen, like, that was a TV show. Like, it's not like whatever. It's not real, yada, yada. Like, now that we're out of this bubble, let's
Yeah.
really go for it. Let's really,
See, that feels
Yeah.
good.
It
right?
does.
you
It
know,
does.
and that's
Yeah.
very believable.
Yeah.
It was.
And again, like, I guess my point and like why I refer to him as the emotional terrorist, it's like how there are certain things when you do the work and you learn the tools to protect yourself when you're triggered from the red flags. We were talking to Camilla about this when she was on. It's just like there are certain people you can't protect yourself from. You know, again, the only way to protect yourself from certain people is to simply trust nobody
Yeah, and just
Mhm.
be in a bubble and don't go
and
outside
never
of it.
Mhm.
take a risk and never take a chance on someone and never feel that like excitement of meeting someone and the potential of what it could be and to just be a cynical person the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so like that's just not fair or realistic. And if fans want to criticize you for that, whatever, but you went for it. And I guess my question to you is like kind of what changed so fast? Because according to what we saw, like you guys dated for what, a week, a month, or, you know, I guess it doesn't
like a
doesn't
month.
track the Jess
Yeah.
we're getting to know.
I think we also saw the paparazzi photos of y'all in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that was
Yeah, where was that?
still in Mexico. That was when filming and all the promos were done. Like a
Okay.
group of people went to like the beach and we had a beach day. And he and I actually we didn't go to the beach together that day. We weren't talking then. And then we went out on the beach separately. And then he saw me and came over to where I was. And he was like, let's go get in the water together. And I'm like,
I'm proud that you did that.
I didn't
Get your
want
hair
to.
wet.
No, and I had just gotten a blowout too. You can see me in one of the photos trying to hold my hair up out of the water.
Yeah.
I was not having I'm just not meant to be outside. And that's what people should take of that's a better conversation. Like I shouldn't have been out there in the first place. That's where I went wrong. But yeah, we weren't even out there together that day. We met up on the beach and were together for maybe a few minutes, and which is crazy because I didn't see anybody taking photos out there. It was seemingly a private beach. So how did the paparazzi get out there?
Someone got a phone call.
You think you did it?
I don't know. Who else?
What does your gut tell you, Jess?
There was nobody else out there. No one knew who I was.
So if gun to your head, who do you think did it?
Someone who really needed attention.
Am I
don't
here
know.
to assume that I don't know means yes in this conversation?
I don't know, but it was a good look for them. It was a good look. Good for them getting the first paparazzi photo ever of me. Whoever was behind that.
Mhm.
How did your relationship the second time around end even faster than the first time around? Because it doesn't make sense that someone like you would enter in this relationship and have it because they framed it as like it was just another situationship. It was more or less meaningless. Whatever, you guys got back together, had a fling, no big deal. You parted ways. Was that what happened? Or because it doesn't make sense that you would enter into a relationship and give this guy a second chance, have him have to say all these intense and serious things, make more promises. I'm sure you had conversations about Autumn and how he spoke about her and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So why did it end so fast again?
My patience was already running very thin. And I told him, I was like, all right, I'm listening to these things that you're committing to me. At the first sign of your nonsense, I'm out. And also we were back out in the real world. When we were on the show, I was still talking to Autumn and seeing her on FaceTime every day. But I wasn't taking her to school and cause she was on summer break. I didn't have my own life going on, reminding me I don't have time to coach someone on how to be a good partner to me. And then also realize, wait, that's what I'm doing. Even though he's saying he knows what he needs to do as a good partner to me, he's kind of falling very
What was
short.
he doing?
I think trying to have his cake and eat it too. I think he was trying to further his career and trying to, honestly, I don't know what he was trying to keep me around for. I was of no use to him because, again, I was seemingly nobody, but he really was still trying to be with me, like, and still do his own
How
thing.
so? What is him trying to be with you and doing his whole thing? What do you mean by that?
Well, he did another show after the fact, and that's what he does for work. That was great. I was happy for him. Always supportive. But it seemed like his experience there, not that it took precedence, because sometimes, work never comes first, but like there were some things
Things are important.
Yeah, work is important. But I think it got to a place where it was becoming unhealthy for me. And there
was
was
another dating show.
It wasn't another dating show. He did another show, and it just became unhealthy for me. Like, there were things that I didn't find acceptable. There were things that I no longer could support. So I just...
Do you feel like he was being honest with you or dishonest with you during that time? Who are you trying to protect?
I think I'm not trying to protect anyone. I think that I've just moved on from it. And the thing about it is, I think people want me to completely read him and his actions to complete filth, which typically I would. But if you look at him and the choices that he's made and the things that he's done, they speak for themselves. There's not really much I have to say about it. Like, if people care enough to know, it's very evident why we didn't work out outside of the show.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, if you look at the timeline of events and see that, he was in a relationship, you can just look at what's public knowledge and decide for yourself if maybe that was appropriate for someone in a relationship or not.
I mean, it looked like he was in a relationship with someone on the show that he was on to the public.
Right. And I don't know if that's true or not, but just kind of selling.
What's the show?
Selling people on it.
Cryptic.
Well, I know he was on Dancing with the Stars. That's what I'm assuming. I don't know any other show he was on.
Why are you so afraid to mention that? I mean, it was a show. It aired.
It did. No, it's
and the world saw, like, I mean, I feel like a lot of people were invested in him on that show.
They were, which, is, they were. And
I was on that show too. So.
Wait, he came in like 6th.
Yeah.
Shut up, seriously?
Yeah. It was right after I was the Bachelor. So I was in a relationship trying to make it work, and that was a very...
Did it interfere?
No, not at all. My partner was PETA, who had just had a child. And so I was very focused on trying to make that work. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it didn't. Well, fortunately, it didn't.
No, fortunately.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Just not
very fortunately. You should be glad it didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be nice. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it was actually, it was a great experience. But I'm fully aware of how the show, when single presenting people, and keep in mind when this happened to the world, he was single.
Yes.
Like, no one knew you existed.
Yeah. Which was fine. That was mutually an understanding thing. And even if we could have been public, I didn't want to be, because we had some things that we needed to figure out behind the scenes.
Which also is totally understand. I mean, like, Nick, I was a nobody when I met Nick, and I didn't want us to be public for a long time.
Yeah.
But he didn't act single. He did interviews, and he said he was, seeing someone, and he was in a relationship. No one knew who. We never said my name.
Mm-hmm.
But people knew he was not single.
Right. So there's things like that I feel like could have been done to help our situation out, that, he had committed to me he was going to do, and then just never did. And well,
here's a question for someone who's been on the show.
Mm-hmm.
There's always, like, Dancing with the Stars is intimate. You're close. You're connected. When you're single, like, the show wants single people to lean in, even if it's fabricated, to a potential relationship. that maybe is the work part. And
Yeah.
so when I went on the show, there's a lot of conversations that her and I had about, expectations and how we handle ourselves, or how and it was very important to me to not have that bring in any type of
Right.
toxicity into our relationship that was already hard enough,
Right.
and things like that. What conversations, because you're together at this point
Mm-hmm.
when he first got casted,
Mm-hmm.
what conversations, if any, did you guys have about expectations of how he would handle himself and present himself to the public?
I mean, we had a lot of open conversations about it, about him just keeping it respectful, and like the intimate piece of like there needing to be chemistry between you and your partner. Like I was so fine with that. I'm such a huge fan of that show. Like I could not have been like more excited.
And also you want him to do good, and to do good, you need to like be
Yeah.
a good dancer and have chemistry. And like
I was so excited. Like I was very supportive, and like that the whole like closeness piece didn't bother me at all. It was when, and that's a thing, because I'm a huge fan of the show. I've seen people kind of take, especially when partners have chemistry like that, people will just take it and run with it. Like, oh, there must be something going on. Because I've seen the show, I know that there's things that you can do that will kind of shut down rumors or make them, not take off the way that they sometimes do. And
like telling the world you're in a relationship, even though you don't want to tell people who, like I did with Natalie.
yeah, which wasn't
Like, hey,
even a
I'm
thing.
not, I'm not. I'm
yeah,
not
which
ready to
wasn't
talk
even
about
a
it.
thing that I wanted him to do. But when like the rumors and everything started, he's like, I don't want people talking about this either. Like I'm gonna shut it down. He could have. I get, for viewership and everything like that, like it worked out really well for them. But at the same time, if you want to do that, like that's just, it's not respectful to me. Like even if no one but you and I knows that we're together, like that's just, I couldn't.
Did you ever have a chance to meet his partner?
No.
Was that ever talked about?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, that was the first thing I did.
Often, yeah.
It was like, hey, Vanessa, Peta, be best friends.
Right. I mean,
that was literally the first thing that happened.
Yeah, that would have alleviated.
That would have gone a long way for you.
Right. But I mean, I don't live down the street. I live across the country. So it's not like I can just pop into practice. So
But were you ever planning on meeting?
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
I don't know. It just didn't work out.
Did you ever want to go watch him live? Was that ever an option?
We had planned for me to go and watch him a couple times, and it just, for reasons I don't know, just didn't work out.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Like when I was on, I was like, "Hey, can I get a couple tickets?" And they're like,
I know,
yeah,
but
sure.
you have to think. I don't know how the logistics work. Like,
It's pretty easy. You actually just send a text, and they give you tickets.
Yeah,
because you're on the show.
I mean, and it was things like that where things just didn't really add up, or I'm just like, there was also the portion of it like where contractually, like we couldn't be out and seen together. So I'm like, we'd planned for me to come, and even if I couldn't go to a show, like maybe a practice or something, and then like every time I was here visiting, it just didn't work out.
It was
so
one of those. There was always a reason why.
kind of, yeah.
Kind of like when you're eating catfish or something.
Yeah, but
it's like, oh no, sorry, my screen's
the
broken.
thing about, to be very clear though, like that is not on his partner at all. Like I don't know if she.
I don't think anyone's.
I don't think anyone's suggesting
Yeah,
that.
He's the one who was in the relationship with you,
right? Like
I don't know.
She probably
what she knew. I mean, who knows what
that's
was
what
being
I'm saying.
said.
That's what I'm saying. She may have not even known that he was in a relationship, or I mean, she was doing her job. And, this was, I mean, it was an incredible season for both of them. It was an amazing first season for her. There were just some very obvious things. And that's what I'm saying is like,
do you even know if she ever had an idea that you guys were in a relationship when?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. Like when we broke up, then it was just very, very abrupt. I was there. I was here visiting, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not doing this. And we broke up the next day and didn't talk.
How many weeks was he on the show before you guys broke up?
3.
So he was dancing. He was practicing with her for about 4 or 5 weeks before you broke up. So how long are you guys actually dating for?
I don't know, maybe a month or 2.
Okay.
Maybe not that long.
A little over a month.
Yeah, a little over a month. It wasn't long because when we got back from Perfect Match, she started that right away.
And you eventually ended it?
Yeah.
What was the last straw?
It was him making commitments to me that he was going to kind of lighten the load with that. Because like was understanding of our relationship having to be a secret for a while. But I'm like, it's kind of excruciating watching the world.
Think you're in love with someone else.
I'm like, this is crazy.
I remember a video of them two like holding hands at some concert or something.
Yeah.
They looked were you guys still together when that happened?
We broke up that morning.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wait, you broke up that morning and that night he's holding
Mhm.
hands with her in public at an event?
Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Oh, I was so mad. I was so, I mean, I was mad. I was sad, but I was just like, whatever. Like,
But prior to that, they were like TikToking and leaning in.
yeah, I mean, in the TikToks, I'm like, okay, that bothered me because again, like I had just made a TikTok. Like I didn't even have one. So I was like,
But it's kind of crazy to think that when he got casted, he had a girlfriend and it was you, and it was like
and
a
it was
month long.
me. I know.
And the whole world had no idea that you
and I'm
even
like,
existed.
I know. And I'm watching.
While they were all falling in love with them.
I was kind of falling in love with him. I was like, I like him. I was like, wait, I like him better with her. I was like, wait, I think that's a better fit for him.
Like, wait, they look so in love.
No, seriously, I'm like, I don't think he looks at me like that. Like,
No, Jess.
no, I'm just kidding. He did. But I was sold on it. I loved them together.
They sold it for sure.
Whether it was just dance partners or I don't know. It is that piece, not my business at all. Like that part's not my story to tell. I don't even know what the story is to tell. I just know.
Did she know you existed?
I don't know.
now
I hope so. I mean, I don't know.
If she doesn't watch Perfect Match, I would,
Well,
I hope no one watches Perfect Match. Don't. If you're listening to this and you haven't watched it yet, please don't.
Did Love is Blind air before
No.
Dancing with the Stars? No.
Like I was
Wow.
just
No, she was a nobody.
and nobody is like really hard.
I don't mean like I don't
harsh. Like,
I mean like she wasn't a public figure.
Like I was out here
literally
raising a human.
But no one was
all
just
by
like
myself. Like
no
I was
one
doing
like,
big things.
She was
trust
doing
me.
good.
But like no one on the internet was like, like Harry and like there's this girl on the internet named Jess and we really want to, you know what I'm saying? Like they were not aware of your
No,
existence.
it was the crazy, all of it was the crazy experience because that season of that show was absolutely insane. Everyone was talking about it everywhere. I'm a huge fan of the show. I've watched every single season.
Not mine.
Or maybe I did, and there were just other people. I don't know.
He didn't do very good. Maybe that's why.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm just like hearing everyone talk about it, and I'm like, yeah, that guy's really beautiful, isn't he?
No.
He's
you
so
had to
great.
pretend.
I love them together. Yeah, they're so cute. Oh my God, Barbie and Ken.
Stop.
Well, I mean, what was that like though? I mean, how did that make you feel at the time? I mean, you're putting on a good face now, and we know you've done a lot of work to heal, but again, you're thinking about what you went through on the show, and then again, this is a person who you did all this work.
Yeah.
You talked about for 2-3 years. You sat your ass on the sideline. I was like, I'm not gonna date. I'm gonna really do the work. And then you're like, finally, I feel safe enough to go out there, which I think for a lot of people, especially women, or not even all people who have been through it, you go back out there, it can be scary. And so, yeah, you took some risks, you went on some shows, you met this guy, made you hope and dream, I found him, he's 6'5", he's gorgeous, he's beautiful, he's got an Australian accent. And like,
it wasn't even that though, believe it or not.
I'm fucking around, but
I know.
But that must be like very vulnerable and scary to like feel like you're ready to go out there and put yourself out there and then meet someone who says all the right things and really connects with you in ways that you've always wanted to connect and really make you feel like I can trust this person. And I've had a hard time trusting people in the past. He talks about your daughter and all these things.
Yeah.
And then it ends. And then you get back together. It makes you trust him again, only for this to happen, only for him to go on this show. And it sounds like, and I really respect the fact that you want to not be messy, but that must have been really hard, and it really must have been hard, and I can only imagine make you question yourself, which is a terrible thing to do. and a very shitty thing to experience, especially for someone like
Yeah.
yourself who's done the work, who's had a lot of shitty experiences in the past. And when you have those shitty experiences, you know, you're realistic. You're like, I know some shit's going to happen in the future, but you really want to like avoid those pitfalls as much as you can. And when there's light at the end of the tunnel, you really want to be like, well, maybe I finally found a lane of peace.
Mm-hmm.
And yet this person comes into your life and makes you, and I can only assume makes you feel like you relapsed on all the work you've done.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good way to put it. Like you hit the nail on the head. I mean the second time it didn't work out. I mean, I was more disappointed in myself. I was just kind of like, I went out on a limb here. Yeah, I wanted that success story so bad. And then just having to kind of sit with the breakup and like being hurt and, you know, watching him have the time of his life, literally. It was really painful. And it seemed like it really hurt me, and it seemed like he couldn't have cared less.
Oh, that was my next question. Do you feel like he acknowledged your pain?
No. I don't know. I don't think that he thought I was hurt at all. But that's the
How is that
other
possible?
thing. Because I didn't tell him that I was. I was very, very matter of fact about it.
Did he care? I mean, he went from promising you the world and talking about.
No, it was like that was the craziest thing. It was like it never happened.
But you lived long distance. He lived in LA. You live where in North Carolina?
Charlotte,
Did
yeah.
you guys talk, you know, in this brief but intense relationship? Were there conversations about closing the distance?
Mm-hmm.
Where were you guys going to move?
I don't know, because to be honest, I hate it here. Like I hate LA.
Same.
Don't come for me.
No, I do too.
I think it is truly the land of opportunity and for work, and like I get so much done, and I've like being in this space and being out here, like, I mean, has afforded me so many opportunities, but I hate it here. But then again, I've lived in Charlotte, North Carolina my whole life. So I did want to move out of there. So we tossed around a lot of ideas because like.
But you did talk about it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And did it feel like serious conversations?
I mean, when you're planning logistics,
I don't know. I mean,
talking
about
building
and
your
I-
home.
It was sold. Well, first of all, it was sold. We didn't know about it, and then it was sold.
Oh, sorry.
Sold to us as a relationship that was like didn't really matter. Like whatever. They got back together. They filmed a video for Netflix. They broke up a week later.
And that was my plan, is to just go about it like that, because I feel like that's just more palatable. Because that's just what people. I mean, they're like, oh, it's him. Like, what did you really thought? Yeah, like I really did. You know, when you're talking about,
That's
like,
okay though, Jess.
Mhm.
It's okay that you believed that. You know, it's not always like beat yourself up over
Yeah.
this.
But listen. We all make mistakes. Like I've made terrible mistakes. I've had to apologize to people I love. I've had people I love have to apologize to me about some things that can be really hurtful. This world isn't a beautiful place if we can't make mistakes and learn from it. The problem is very few people actually do make the change, but we want like to have that impact. Like we talked about when this episode first started, your mom, and just like, you're not the only one who has that kind of fixing complex. It's a popular, you know, kind of thing that people want to do, you know, and so we want to believe in people, I guess is my point. And people can change. And so you're not an idiot for giving someone a second chance. I mean, like I think he came on Perfect Match. And his big kind of thing was, I used to be this person. I used to be this person. I'm no longer this person. I've done the work. Yada, yada, yada. I'm ready to marry. And then
I'm like,
my understanding recently, after the season ends, it's like, it was just a rewind from like a year or two ago. And now I'm a new person. That person was a bad person. I'm no longer that person, you know? Like, do you believe that? Is that like, I mean, it just seems like a thing that's said, and
I want it for him. I really do. I don't truly know what he wants. I don't know if that's just like, you know, like an opportunistic thing or like a more marketable thing. But I want to believe like he saw himself the same way all of us did. Like you've got to want to reflect and make some changes after that. I saw myself on the show. It was mortified. I mean, other than my edit being absolute dookie, like it was so bad.
I don't
It was
think
horrible.
that.
I don't think
I
I
think
would
you
either,
actually showed a
Jess.
lot of strength on your season and both seasons on Love is Blind and
you.
this perfect match. That sit down when you were like, I'm putting myself, my daughter first, and like as much as I want to believe you, like I can't give you that. Like it was such an act of strength, and I'm like, I think it's actually very encouraging and empowering for women to watch. Where it's like he is this like Australian god that would make sense for you to
Yeah.
crumble, and it's like for you to say absolutely not, and then him pursue you actively, and for you to give him that second chance. That is also another form of strength. And unfortunately, yeah, it didn't end well. But I'm like, the fact that you'll even give yourself that grace to be like, listen, I'll give you a second chance and put myself out there because I want to believe in love.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that you got to give yourself a lot more credit for that.
Yeah, I'm trying to. That I haven't I've forgiven him, and I'm like, I really hope that you do better because
And I think we all want that for people we see on TV,
Yeah.
and whether we root for them or against them, you know, unless you're a real cynic and you want people to stay bad and stay shitty.
Yeah, no,
you want
God, I
people to-
don't. I'm like the complete opposite. I do see the best in everything and even things I shouldn't. But I think I'm trying to forgive myself because I do know. I mean, and that's one of the best things, debatably the best thing that I've taken away from both experiences, and is being able to like touch so many people and resonate with so many people, and people, hundreds of thousands of women and men message me and say you're such an inspiration, and they like send me quotes of things that I've said on both shows and been like, this changed my life. Like I got up today, I listened to this on my way to work, or I was in a bad relationship and I saw you on the show, and like this really gave me the push that I needed or the sign that I needed to get out of it. And then some people have been like you said, like I really loved that speech where you said you had to choose yourself, but it broke my heart when I saw you guys get back together, and like I expected more from you, and I'm like, I did too. I expected more from me too. But the takeaway from that is like I said, everyone has a threshold, and you will know, like you know when you've reached it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might not be the most ideal or opportune time, or when like your friends or your family, because how many times have you been talking to one of your girlfriends and they're, you know, pouring their heart out to you, and you want to be like, girl, like leave his ass. But you know, she will in her own time. And it might take a couple more times of her crying and you guys having to listen and talk her through it. But like the grace I'm telling other women and people to give themselves, I'm trying to give myself right now.
Well, I'm glad that you are. When bad things happen for me or anyone or my team or whatever, a question I like to ask myself or that, like, let's not beat ourselves up. Let's not
Yeah.
relitigate the past, but what could we learn from it? What can we do differently? And I guess, again, back to like our commentary on the show and him and things like that is like, I mean, sure, you could have been like, I could have not believed him. Like from the get, I could have just assumed everything he was saying to me was a lie. And from where I sit and what I saw, and again, it's a TV show, you can tell us what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
Is that like, I don't know what you could have done differently. Do you feel that the same, or?
I wish that I wouldn't have done it on TV.
Well, that's just your
I
ego.
mean,
I'm
in
talking
real
about
life,
I'm talking about for the people who reached out and said, "Hey, you know, it was hard for me to watch you get back together," you know, and
Yeah.
that implies that you should have known better or you should have done something differently.
Yeah,
And
I don't think I could have. I think even if I hadn't been on TV, I don't think I would have, because a lot of people are like, you know, I fell in love with you on Love is Blind. I really loved the woman that you were on there, but this, you know, you didn't do yourself any favors on Perfect Match. And I'm like, what you guys don't realize is it is the same person. You just did not get to see me physically like in a relationship on Love is Blind. It is in fact the same person. You guys just didn't know. I have terrible taste in men. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm the same person. I mean what I say. I mean, don't play with me. I'm not the one or the two. I mean, like, I'm giving you the answers to the test. This is what I want and need out of a relationship. And if you can't meet me there, then there's the door. I do mean that. Just maybe not on the first try. Like I'm not a superhuman. I'm not, because I'm eloquent and I know how to communicate does not mean that I don't have feelings and that I'm not vulnerable and that I don't still try and think the best in my partner who I love. Like that's, in my mind, that's what you're supposed to do in a relationship. If every time your partner disappointed you, you're like, oh, well, peace.
I'm out.
You know, like that's not real. Now, when the foundation is cracked and, you've had multiple boundaries like crossed and trampled on a million times, like, okay, yeah, then like some reevaluating needs to be done. But, you can be both.
Yeah.
I think it's more relatable than maybe you think. And I think a lot of people have been through this and given second chances and been screwed over. And I think the people, first, you have to stop reading comments.
I'm trying.
DMs. You have to stop.
I'm trying.
And I think those people are, like you said, hurting themselves, and people hurt people. And
yeah.
A lot of people like to throw buzzwords around online,
I know,
around TV show, like words like narcissist.
Everyone's a therapist.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'd like to see you guys do this. Okay. I'd like to see y'all in that environment and not act a whole donkey. Like it was very hard.
It's very difficult.
People are like, oh my gosh, you were so composed. That compliment I will gladly take because I was. Like, because to not show your ass every time like someone's doing something that you don't like and you're already hot and like dying from a heat stroke, it was hard.
Yeah. I guess my question is, do you think a lot of people accused him of being a narcissist, and people accuse that. A lot of people accuse me of being a narcissist online, so that words are thrown around, But again, what we saw on the TV show was what seemed to be like screaming examples of some of these buzzwords that the internet often misuses. Gaslighting, love bombing, narcissism, things like that. Do you think that once again it has an overreaction by the audience, or I guess my question is, if he's so smart,
Yeah.
and you're smart.
Smarter.
And you seem to be
Period.
really emotionally intelligent and done the work. How did this happen if he is sincere?
Because maybe, I don't know, maybe he's not. But are you asking if I think he's a narcissist, or I think
Neither of us are psychologists or therapists.
right? I'm
but-
like, I can't diagnose him. I think that he is exactly what he thinks he is, and I think that how you treat others says more about you than it does of them.
Yeah.
I mean, he did wear a I Heart Gaslighting or
I
Gaslighters t-shirt.
Think
So-
that he is whatever he thinks that he is about himself, and I don't think the answer to that is what most people would think. I don't think if you love yourself, if you think highly of yourself, I don't think that you treat others and the people you claim to love the way that he does. And having said that, I hope that he finds happiness and healing. Like that's the thing, is like, there's a lot of things I could say about him. There's a lot of experiences I had with him that no one will ever know unless I were to come out and just say them. But I won't, because he's the one who has to live with them. Like it's
worse than what you've shared.
It will stay with him much longer than it will stay with me. For me to heal and move on from it, I don't have to call a spade a spade.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I know who I am, and I can see, like, if I'm being empathetic, I can see why being in this space and having the experiences and being on shows and, like I said, being in this space can change who you are and change what you believe in and how you think of yourself. For me, that's never going to happen. And I think that is because of the things that I went through before being on the show. But for some people, maybe him, maybe not, I think that it can change you in a way where you don't know who you are. You don't know what you believe in. You don't know what means anything to you. And you just kind of, I guess, maybe go where the wind blows you. And I don't know. That's just not really the kind of person I want to be. And I think if he were in my seat, I think that even though I don't think I gave him anything negative to say about me, I think he would take the bait. But I don't have to do that.
What do you mean take the bait? Like, are you afraid of him?
No.
No, like that he would say something if given the
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah. If it meant making him look better, I think he would do it. But anyway, my point is, like, I don't have to call a spade a spade. He's the one who has to live with these things, and maybe it hasn't hit him yet. Maybe it won't for a long time, and maybe it won't even in this lifetime. But I think when you treat the people that you claim to love the way that he does, I think that speaks for itself, and I don't really have to say much else about it.
Okay. What's next for you, Jess?
Finally. Over here got a sweat stash cooking.
Move the
'cause
fuck
I'm-
on from this shit.
You're like, how do I navigate these questions? I don't know.
I can navigate them, and I'm like, damn, like, y'all saw what I saw. Like, dang.
Well, I want to say
I
thank you
know.
for for being as vulnerable as you were willing to be. I know it's not easy. I know this was a long time ago. It's hard to relive. It seems obvious to me and us that you want to be a good example to your fans, whether people think that or not. That matters to you, and this is hard. This is not easy to talk about, because it sounds like it was an experience. As much as you have shared, it sounds like maybe there's some more difficult things that you're not willing, and we want to respect that. And it's hard. It's really hard to talk about these things, and it's really hard to be open and then hope that people appreciate your vulnerability as opposed to criticizing it or calling it something else. And it's like, how do I stand up for myself while not trying to throw dirt or things like that? And sometimes it's very difficult to navigate.
Right. And I do, before I get into what's next, because I am excited to share that, I do want to say, I'm sure a lot of people, if anyone was interested in anything I had to say, would have been excited to hear me, read someone to filth or give a really crass opinion about what I think about the show. But the fact of the matter is, and even the best person on any of the shows I've been with receives some hate or has experienced some kind of hardship or has struggled with mental health and being in this space. I don't think that me saying something bad about someone else or their actions, when we all clearly already know that they're bad and they're already experiencing hate and they're already having a hard time, I could not sleep at night knowing that I piled onto that. So it's not me protecting anyone. It's not me like trying to be posh or like politically correct. That's just me
Being a good person.
coming from a place of, I don't want to speak someone's name into a room, because I can have my opinion, but that may not have been someone's intention. I think it's kind of messed up speaking someone's name into a room where they're not there to defend themselves. So it's not me standing up for him or protecting him or anything like that. It's just, I'm still treating him the way I'd want him to treat me. So if anyone comes for me for being weak, argue with your mother. Like, I'm done.
And also, she's not reading it, so go fuck yourself.
Also, yeah, I'm not going to see it. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, well, no, it's hard because I want to like interact with the fans that have nice things to say. So I'm like, oh my God, love you back. I support you too. Your baby's so beautiful. I looked at your profile. But then it's like, oh my God, you're a weak ass bitch. And I'm like, all right, blocked. Oh my God, I didn't mean to say that. I'm not looking for the bad ones. It's like, I'm trying to interact with the good ones, and the bad ones are just like splashed in there. So anyway.
Well, unsolicited advice, the good comments are more dangerous than the bad.
Oh, why?
Because those people who say good things, as well-intentioned as they might be, they don't know you. They've never met you.
Oh, yeah.
They've only seen you on TV.
True.
And so when you read comments from people you don't know and they're nice, your brain says, that person knows what they're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Like they're validating. Yeah,
yes.
true.
And then all of a sudden you can read 100 nice comments, and then all that, your weak ass bitch comes in. And so your brain.
I'm like, okay, well, you obviously don't know me.
Your subconscious brain is telling you, no, you do know. You have to listen to this person.
You're
listen to 300 other people saying you're a queen. And so your brain tells you that this is a valid criticism.
You're so right. Okay, I didn't think about it like that. But when people will share stories in their comments and talk to me about
when the dust
their
settles,
kid for a new pair of shoes, and I'm like, oh my God, send me a picture. What size?
When the dust settles and people aren't.
I love talking to people about their kids. Like,
I get it.
But
listen, there's a time and a place.
Saying.
There's a time and a place, and sometimes I'm more active online, and sometimes I'm like, time to get off. But like,
no, I've learned
it's hard
that.
to thread the needle. It
is like.
You can't ignore the bet. It's like
I
you
know,
can't read
you're
comments
so right.
and just
like deactivate, like completely deleting one of the apps, and like just I found a lot of peace.
Wonders,
if I had done that, I don't think I would be here. I don't think I would have survived. I mean, I would be here, but like I would have still been hiding and not being able to get out of bed if I didn't force myself and like practice the self-control to like step away from it. So you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try and do better, because you can't have one without the other. So yeah, I'm not gonna read them anyway.
Yeah, stupid. Next for you.
So what's next for me? Well, having said all that, having essentially this tremendous platform given to me, like I want to do something really impactful with it. Like as we talked a little bit about today, like I'm really passionate about foster care and advocating and being a voice to kids that might not have one or might not know how to have one. And I don't know exactly what that looks like yet. I have like a lot of really good ideas and things I'm tossing around, and I've had a lot of conversations with really big, like reputable charities within the space that I'm looking to partner with and learn things from, because ultimately, like, that's my long-term goal, is to have my own nonprofit that benefits foster children. And I have so many things I want to do. I've got to be intentional about it, or else I'm just going to be doing random things everywhere. But that, and I'm working on a couple big projects that are really near and dear to my heart that, like, I'm really excited about, but I can't share too much about yet. And
Perfect Match season 3.
I can't, please. It's too soon.
Get the fuck out.
No, please. Never. I don't.
Would you be the Bachelorette?
No.
Okay.
I don't think that that's a thing, but I wouldn't
What do you
date
mean
on,
it's not a thing?
like, I don't think the two
No,
networks
I don't know if they cross
cross
over, but
I don't.
we're just
Never say
pretending.
never, yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
I don't know. I mean, Bachelor, I don't know if you've watched or you're familiar. They love trauma. And they love a trauma dump.
They love a
and they love a
storyline.
story.
They do.
And
They
you
do.
got
They do.
the foster care.
No, I hear
and
you.
got the single
No,
mother.
I fit the mold. Like, I know I do.
I'm just saying.
But
I don't know
do
if anyone's
not
listening.
call me for that.
Yeah.
Do not.
I can point you in the
picking
direction
up
of
the phone.
No, I won't. I mean, I will, like, if you just want to talk about, like, how your day was, but I'm not entertaining the conversation of dating on TV again, ever, in the best way. I'm not saying I wouldn't do TV again, but a dating show, like, that's not for me.
Dancing with the Stars.
You would crush.
Do you think? I mean,
you should do it. Dancing with the Stars.
I mean, if given the
If you're
opportunity,
listening.
I would leap. I would do a cartwheel into it.
Literally leave.
Yeah.
Sorry for asking. It just came popped in my
No,
head.
I
You
wouldn't
can
date
interrupt.
on TV again.
Wait, if you ran into his partner, what would you say to her?
I would give her a hug.
Love.
What do you mean? Like,
No, I'm not suggesting anything bad. Or maybe you guys would bond. I don't know. Maybe
I
you'd
think
be
we
best
would.
friends.
The thing about it is that man has impeccable taste. He does. I'm flattered to be in the lineup. He loves beautiful, talented,
Mhm.
funny women.
Hot, successful.
I'm flattered to be in the lineup, truly. I hate that for us, but
Yeah.
I'm flattered. You know, so yes, back to me. I have some really exciting, really impactful things that I'm really, really excited about, because I don't ever think I'll consider myself as like an influencer. But like I said, I have this platform, so I want to use it for more than just like posting cute photos. I mean, no shade to that. I love that too. Like, that's what I follow my friends online for. But there's a lot of things that aren't talked about enough that need to be talked about, that I wholeheartedly feel like in all of this was my purpose on being TV and having all these eyes and ears on me now.
I don't know what your future with more children looks like. Would you be open to fostering?
I think about that often. Yes, I would. It's a conversation I'd have to have with Autumn, and I think that's something I would want to do maybe when I get married. But I do.
Yeah.
I think it's hard not. It would be hard not to. So yeah, I probably would.
I've always wanted to as well.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Maybe I'd get a little Jess.
I hope so. I hope so. And that's the thing. If you're listening to this and you're interested in fostering, don't be afraid to maybe foster one of the older children, because they might just surprise you. A lot. The older children are the ones that have the hardest time being placed, because I don't want to say no one wants them, but they're not as, not as a hot commodity as like a newborn or a toddler. So, but also, like I said, I have Crohn's disease. So, which is like more than half of my following on my platforms is like the Crohn's community. I'm not
That's
joking.
so
I'm not
crazy.
joking. They go so hard. They're the ones, not that I'm reading them, but they're the ones fighting in the comments. Like, they go hard for me.
I feel like my sister has Crohn's disease. I knew nothing about
Right?
it.
It's such
and
a taboo thing.
like, for our audience who doesn't know what it is, can you explain what Crohn's disease is?
Okay. Thank you for opening the floor, because if not, people were going to Google it and they were going to be
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So Crohn's disease is an autoimmune disease that affects your small intestine. And I guess the most concise way I can describe it is you just basically have a part or multiple parts that are essentially just defective. So it can be treated if you catch it in the early stages, where it can kind of function normally, but if it goes too far gone, then you sometimes have to get those sections removed. And then if it gets too farther gone, that's when people end up having to use the bag, and
It's a very inconvenient disease.
it is. I mean, it's an autoimmune disease. If you know anything about anything autoimmune, it affects your whole body. It's your body essentially like attacking itself.
Yeah.
So I have a huge community there that I want to wrap my arms around and hopefully make a difference there and raise more awareness, because I mean, just the few things that I've shared about it on social media, people who have Crohn's or people who don't know about Crohn's are like, oh my God, that was so helpful. Or I'm so grateful that you shared that you do that. I'm doing that now and that's helped me. Or so that's a community I've really
I do
enjoyed.
think it is. I know my sister didn't know what it was for a long time and thought, it was stomach aches, and then she's like gluten sensitive,
Right.
and she's this, and she's lactose intolerant, and she's all of these things that I feel like were more talked about than Crohn's disease. She thought it was, and for
Yeah.
a long time it went undetected.
And that's how it is for most people. It goes undetected or it goes misdiagnosed, and that's how it gets to the point of being too far gone because it isn't treated properly. But I know this isn't like a health and wellness podcast, so I won't go too far out in the weeds.
This
But
is your podcast today.
those are things that I feel really passionate about, that I want to invest a lot of time and effort and heart and soul in, because those are the things that fill my cup. And obviously Autumn. I love her so much. It hurts. She's 11, and most days she doesn't pay attention to me now because she's her own person and she's, living her own life with her friends, but she's not a teenager yet. So I'm like holding on to like the last remnants of her, like wanting to hang out with me and be my bestie before I lose her for a couple years, and then she'll be back, But right now, like when I went into hiding after the show, that's where I was investing all my time, because she's on summer break right now. So we've been spending a lot of time together and hanging out and doing all the bestie things.
Are the DMs open, so to speak?
What do you mean?
Or is your heart open to love? I mean, you talked about taking a 3-year break after a bad experience, and obviously this experience wasn't an easy one. Probably one of the harder ones you've experienced. Are you going to take another 2-year hiatus, or are you get back out there? I
think for the first time, I'm going to plead the fifth on this one. I'm just going to hold my cards a little close to my chest. I'm going to keep the topic of relationships off the table for a while. That's not really my focus.
Okay.
I just want to enjoy Autumn and the other things I'm passionate about. And if there's someone special, there's someone special. If not, I'm okay with that too.
Well, a lot of special people out there.
Yeah, but like special for me, because I'm really special. Like that's one thing I do know, that even despite all of this, I know I'm so deserving of like a really good partner, because I know it sounds so cliche, but it's like I know what I have to offer. So, I know what I bring to the table. But truly, I know that I would be a really good wife. So I really want like the reciprocity of like the partner that I am.
Is your reluctance based more on do you think you still need to heal from the experience, or are you just...
Believe it or not, I don't think my healing is right now that I'm working through is coming from my experience on the show. That kind of stirred up a lot of you could see. I mean, I couldn't even like get through it without completely getting choked up. There's a lot of childhood trauma that stirred up that I think I need to work through in order to make me a better person and a better mom and ultimately a better partner, because those things, those mistakes that I made in that relationship and on the show, like those haven't been resolved. Like those are things I need to work on for me so that I can be better. So
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Jess?
Do you want to hang out?
Yeah, okay. Of course I do.
Jess, thank you so much for coming.
Thank
It's
you
been
for
a pleasure
having
getting to
me.
know you more and to finally have everyone hear your truth. We wish you nothing but the best.
Yeah.
Thanks for being vulnerable.
Did my best.
I'm glad you're giving yourself some grace and not being so hard on yourself. And I hope that you still, shoot for the stars and allow people, or I hope you still take risks on people, because without that,
No, I'm still going to live.
Yeah.
I'll still live my best.
All right.
Love you.
Love you guys.
Well, we love Jess. We love you guys. Thanks for listening. If you are tuning in for the first time to hear Jess, stick around, subscribe, follow us, share with friends. We'll be back tomorrow for another episode of Reality Recap. Jess, you got to watch Love Island USA.
I can't. It's too soon.
Good.
It's too soon. Wait, how do you know that I haven't watched it?
Have you?
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. I love them and support them from a distance, but like it's too soon. Like,
It's movie night tomorrow.
I'm taking.
Do you know what movie night is?
What, like quite literally, or I'm like,
It's my
yeah, I do
first,
that
it's
all the
my
time.
first movie night. But yeah, they kind of did what they did with Imperfect Match, but then they show clips of what the guys actually did. It would be like if you were to
If they pulled in a TV and showed that finale.
after Harry
Yeah.
told you
Yep.
he didn't
And they don't
do
have
it.
to wait till the end.
No.
Oh my god, I signed up for the wrong freaking show. That's where I should have gone.
Anyways,
I
if
had to
you're
wait a whole
watching or
year.
not watching, we have a lot to get
2:10.
into and talk about. It'll be amazing. Thank you, Jess, for coming.
Thank you for
Follow her.
having me.
Where can people follow you?
I still feel silly saying follow me. Like
I'm asking people to
Oh,
follow
okay.
you.
My Instagram handle is Jess Vestal, and so is my TikTok.
All right. Well, give her a follow. It's a good follow. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you loved what you listened to, make sure you hit that subscribe button below. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.